So if you don't know, Mark Hamill was not very happy with the way Luke Skywalker was portrayed in The Last Jedi or the sequel trilogy as a whole, but mostly in The Last Jedi. Well, recently he has tweeted some things that I think he may be subtweeting Rian Johnson and the other creators of The Last Jedi. So we're going to break down a couple of those tweets, as well as break down an interview that Mark did alongside of Daisy Ridley for promotion for The Last Jedi that I think is very interesting, because he says some stuff that I think it's pretty crazy that he's allowed to say. And I think the reason a lot of people haven't seen this interview is, one, because it's in one of the Asian countries. It's either China or Japan or something like that. And for two, I think Lucasfilm wanted to bury the interview because Mark does talk bad about the movie very indirectly. You can tell he's trying to talk good about the movie, but he just can't bring himself to do it. But we're going to break down one of his tweets and break down that interview in this video. Let's get into it. Okay, so as you can see by the tweet that's on the screen here, Mark Hamill tweets at Peyton Reed after Peyton Reed tweets at Mark Hamill, thanking him for everything he's done for Star Wars and for cinema. In Mark Hamill's tweet, he says, "Dear Peyton Reed, I am so grateful to have been given the unexpected opportunity to revisit my character when he was still a symbol of hope and optimism." We'll come back to that. "Your assured direction and kindness was a crucial element in the experience and means more to me than I can say." So yeah, let's go back to the first sentence of this tweet where he says, "I am so grateful to have been given the unexpected opportunity to revisit my character when he was still a symbol of hope and optimism." Now, obviously what he's saying here is his character in the sequel trilogy wasn't a symbol of hope and optimism at all. And he's obviously still subtweeting Rian Johnson and subtweeting the rest of the creatives behind The Last Jedi by saying this, because Luke has always been a symbol of hope and optimism. Luke is a lot of people's childhood hero, and for them to do what they did to Luke in the sequel trilogy was probably a big downer for a lot of people, not just Mark Hamill, but also for a lot of fans that looked up to Luke during their childhood and also still do look up to Luke. We know that Mark Hamill loves the character of Luke Skywalker, and he puts his heart and soul into it every single time he's on the screen. Even in The Last Jedi, where he doesn't agree with the direction that they're going with the character, he still gave it his all, and he still gave a damn good performance in that movie. And that to me is a sign of a true professional, of a person that truly loves the character that they're playing, a person that truly loves the movies that they're in, and that's why we love Mark Hamill. But in this tweet, Mark then goes on to say, "Your assured direction and kindness was a crucial element in the experience and means more to me than I can say." We all know that Mark didn't like the way Luke was handled in The Last Jedi or the sequel trilogy, so whenever he was asked for his blessing to bring Luke back into the universe to show Luke one more time, he was probably very skeptical of it because he didn't want them doing any further damage to the character. But obviously Mark Hamill did need reassurance in the direction that they were going with the Luke character for The Mandalorian for him to allow them to bring the character back into live action again. And the fact that Mark says kindness was a crucial element in the experience probably means that Rian Johnson or maybe even J.J. Abrams weren't too kind to him on set. They really didn't care about his feelings about the direction that their story was going in. They just wanted to tell the story that they wanted to tell, and they really didn't care about the opinions of the actors that have been playing these characters forever. Well, that's it for the breakdown of that tweet. We're now going to move on to an interview with Mark Hamill and Daisy Ridley about The Last Jedi. I believe it was in promotion for The Last Jedi, so this came out before The Last Jedi came out. But Lucasfilm has tried to bury this interview because of how bad Mark Hamill talks about The Last Jedi. He does it indirectly, but you can tell that he was trying to talk good about The Last Jedi and talk good about Rian, and he just couldn't bring himself to do it. Okay, so I've brought the interview clip up on the screen here, and I will pause and break down at certain points throughout this clip, so let's get into it.
You know, I don't like being pushed out of my comfort zone. I thought, well, Harrison didn't get pushed out of his comfort zone. He's flying spaceships, making wisecracks and being cynical. Why am I so different? But it's really important for the story. And I came to realize, first of all, it's not my story anymore.
So there you can see Mark Hamill saying that he was really struggling with the fact that it's not his story anymore, and he didn't want it to be that way. He wanted it to be the story of the old and the new, and it probably should have been more of a passing of the torch situation instead of just being about the new characters the whole time. But he also said he struggled to get out of his comfort zone with the Luke character because Harrison Ford got to play Han Solo, the same Han Solo from the original trilogy. Carrie Fisher got to play the same Leia from the original trilogy, yet Mark Hamill had to play this weird old Luke that was a hermit, and he was very uncomfortable with it, and understandably so.
The story of the new protagonist. So, you know, eventually you have to trust Rian.
You could really see there that he was struggling to say the words trust Rian with that huge pause between the words trust and Rian. And during that pause, Daisy Ridley looks up at him like, please just say the word, because she knows why he is struggling to say the words trust Rian, because she knows why he is struggling to trust anyone at Lucasfilm because of the direction that they're taking his character. Once again, very understandable trust issues from Mark Hamill. Once again, very understandable emotions coming out of Mark Hamill here. I don't feel like any of this is out of place.
He's the director and he wrote it. And I have such a bond with him. I thought, I don't think this is right for me, but I'm going to do the best I can to realize your vision. Because, you know, I'd much rather be so powerful I have force lightning coming out of my ears. And, you know, when we were doing the 7, Ryan said, oh, and by the way, I might have a couple of boulders floating to show your force emanating. So I was led to believe that I still had the force and that was really strong in me.
Too, because that would have changed the whole story.
Of course. In fact,
So if you don't know what they're talking about, J.J. Abrams actually wrote into the script that when Rey was going to find Luke on Ahch-To, he would have boulders floating around him to show how powerful he has become. When Ryan saw that in the script and when Ryan made the decision to go in the direction that he went, he asked J.J. to remove that from the script and not have any boulders floating because of the direction that he wanted to go with The Last Jedi. But other than that, you can see once again that Mark Hamill is struggling to say that he agrees with the direction that they went with his character. He actually said that he disagreed with it and that he struggled to accept that direction, but he did end up accepting it and he did end up putting his best performance out there that he possibly could. Once again, extremely respectable by Mark. I also want to note how awkward Daisy Ridley is looking in this interview. She keeps looking up at Mark like, please don't say anything bad, please don't say anything to get us fired. And if you want to, go back and rewatch this interview clip and just watch Daisy Ridley and how awkward she looks.
of course. In fact, when I read 8 before 7 came out, I said, what? And I called, did I call JJ or Ryan? Somebody, I said, just say, are you guys aware of this? Have you seen a cut? Is there floating boulders? And they said, no, we caught that. We worked it all out. But that's the difference here. In the old days, there was an overall outline. This one's more like a relay race where the first guy runs the race and hands the torch off. And then,
so even before The Last Jedi comes out, Mark Hamill exposes the fact that Disney or Lucasfilm didn't have an overall outline for the story that they wanted to tell. And that's just a horrible way to try and tell a story. And the fact that Mark is being so open about that is probably why Disney wanted to bury this interview. He also highlighted the disparity between the episode 7 and episode 8 scripts in this interview, where he said he read the 2 scripts and he was very shocked at how different they were. He said he even called up the directors to make sure that they knew how different they were, and they said they did and they were working on it. But it is pretty crazy that Mark Hamill exposed that Disney didn't have a plan for the sequel trilogy even before The Last Jedi came out. Let's finish up this interview real quick.
the same with Ryan. Whoever, or JJ now is going to take Ryan's story and figure it all out. So it's interesting. The new trilogy will be different because Ryan will have an overall outline for all 3 films.
So the new trilogy that Mark is referring to was the announced Rian Johnson trilogy. He was supposed to do a whole trilogy by himself, which I think would have been pretty good because he would have been able to make one cohesive story at least. And even if you don't like the direction that Rian Johnson went with The Last Jedi, and I don't blame you for that, you have to admit that he is a good filmmaker, he's a good director, and he's a good writer. But I think if he was given all unknown characters that we've never met before and given the freedom to write, direct, and create the story for an entire trilogy, I think it would have been pretty good. But you can let me know what you think about that in the comments, and I'm sure you will. But yeah, I just wanted to share with you guys how bitter Mark Hamill was and still is about The Last Jedi, and rightfully so. I just think it's very interesting how open he was and still is about how bad The Last Jedi was going to be in terms of Luke Skywalker. He tried to warn us back then, and he's still trying to open people's eyes to how bad the Luke Skywalker character was portrayed in the sequel trilogy, and I just think that's very interesting. But once again, shout out to Mark Hamill for giving his best performance possible in the movie, even though he didn't agree with the direction the character was going in. I think that's really awesome by Mark. But let me know in the comments what you think about all this Mark Hamill stuff that we talked about in this video. If you did enjoy the video, consider checking out some of my other content and subscribing to the channel, and also leave a like on the video. If you want to find me on socials, all the links will be in the description as well as the link to the Discord. But other than that, thanks for watching the video and hope to see you on the next one.